Hello, my name is Christian Gascon, and I'm here to talk about internet surveillance and the topic of giving authorities complete access to internet activities. Starting with a positive, catching hackers. Giving the proper authorities access to civilian internet activities does have its positives, such as being able to track and find hackers. Hackers are a very serious and still growing problem in our society, since some of our most important information is online, such as banking information, social security, purchase history. So giving authorities access would allow them to find outrageous purchases made from a credit card that belongs to someone else in a different state altogether. And this kind of event happens much more frequently than we'd like to believe. On to my second point, preventing crimes. In addition to my first point, it would give authorities a chance to prevent crimes or even terrorist attacks based on purchase history and messages between criminals. For example, if someone on social media posts pictures of themselves with a gun or guns and posts threats to certain individuals repeatedly, then it would be safe to assume that a person needs to be carefully watched to potentially prevent the possible crime. There have been many cases of this, as in criminals posting on Facebook before they commit the crime or making vague threats repeat. So this is a very serious issue. On to my third point, society feeling safe. Although it is a breach in privacy, you can assume that people would feel safer knowing that hackers and other criminals are being carefully watched, if not arrested, as you go about your daily life. If a society feels safe, then they can be more productive. Therefore, a more productive society is a successful society, given that they won't have to look behind their back as they're living about their daily lives and can focus on more important things. Now for the negatives. Compromise and security. Starting with security being compromised or leaked out to the public. If such a thing happens, I don't have to tell you how disastrous it would be on, I dare say, a global scale. It might seem almost impossible given how much security there would be for authorities to account the access of such information. But given the fact that so many hackers exist today, 1 out of 1 million might be able to compromise and crack the system. Because if one thing, hackers are persistent and there are a lot of them, it's only natural one out of 1 million would be able to crack something, because nothing is impossible. My next point, freedom question mark. To further add to the previous point, Big Brother constantly watching on in everything we do, can you really call it freedom? Living in such a controlled environment is basically living life in a virtual prison. Suddenly, the First Amendment is nullified because we cannot truly speak freely without turning the attention of authorities and painting targets on our backs, therefore making it unconstitutional. The Constitution is an American code of ethics that we live by and is not something we would cast aside so easily. On to the next point, abuse. Another issue with the idea of Big Brother watching is the amount of power that the government would have over the people and the individuals, and how abusive it would be, such as blackmailing civilians or even use civilians' private information for their own ends. Corruption is a big thing going on right now in our government and in most governments. So the amount of power with that corruption is not something to be overlooked. To my conclusion, with all the points that I've made, both positive and negative, it is my belief that there is some good that could come from authorities watching the internet activity of civilians. But the truth is, the sacrifice is too great for this so-called security. Best case scenario would be surveillance with extreme limitations and required authorization from multiple parties to prevent the abuse of too much power. Another point I'd like to make is on two books that show where this could lead, as in George Orwell's 1984 and Brave New World by Aldous Huxley. In both stories, they display a utopian society based on extreme control by the government or the people in power. And the citizens themselves are living in such a controlled environment where everything they do, everything they eat, everything they look at is monitored. They're supposed to take medications to control their emotions and keep them in check. That in a society is not much of a society at all, when the citizens themselves are drones and can't think for themselves or do as they like. And another point to add on to that is that it would start from internet activity surveillance. It's always going to start at some point with surveillance, because once you start watching, you see everybody's habits, and you start to see certain things you wouldn't think are right, but you don't have the bigger picture. So in other words, I believe that it is wrong to have internet surveillance at such a level, because it could lead to such a society that would be so controlled that I would not want to be a part of. And thank you for watching.